So I just started it. Welcome to the campaign office hour we're doing for December. These are community spaces. We really want to give you a chance to give feedback, ask questions, connect with us. This month we are focusing on WikiForHumanRights to kind of connect you with and talk about the campaign. This is kind of a special campaign, and it's one of the two content campaigns that the Wikimedia Foundation supports actively right now. The other being One Lublin Ref. Both of them are in the process of planning and implementing at the moment, and it's really exciting. We're going to be talking about WikiForHumanRights. What is it? We have a few guest speakers about the experiences from last year, and I have my co-host, Ruby, who is our organizing fellow for WikiForHumanRights this year, and she's going to tell you what to expect. Ruby, do you want to introduce yourself briefly, or do you want to do that later? Oh, well, you're muted, but we'll do it.
Yeah, we can do that later on.
Okay, cool. For those of you who do not know me, I am Alex Stenson. I'm a senior program strategist at the Wikimedia Foundation, and I've been organizing various kinds of activities for a long time now in the Wikimedia movement. And we wanted to tell you a little bit about WikiForHumanRights and kind of how we are organizing. So last year, we ran the second iteration of WikiForHumanRights, and we focused it in on the right to a healthy environment. This is a relatively new human rights concept that we wanted to ground the campaign in. And the reason for this is and we'll talk about this a bit more, is that the climate crisis and various other environmental crises have made the importance of a healthy and clean environment more important. This campaign is, we're in partnership with UN Human Rights, and we had support from UN Environmental Program on selecting the topic and communicating the campaign, and we'll kind of hear more from them as we get closer into the campaign period. Last year, by the numbers, was pretty successful. For the second round of a campaign, we saw about 2,000 articles created, translated, and improved substantially. And just for those of you entering the room now, just a reminder, we'll be recording until the Q&A. About 2,000 total articles created, translated, improved in over 30 languages. Importantly, articles like the right. I'm gonna mute. Yeah, bueno. So over 300 participants in 27 languages, or 30 languages and 27 community events. In the top left, you can see one of the community events in the Philippines, and the bottom right, you can see the advertising for one of the events in Nigeria. As we kind of listened to communities after the campaign and during the campaign, we heard a lot of good things about this topic and about this campaign. Communities identified unexpected partners and kind of audiences and topics to work on as part of the campaign. And so it was kind of inviting and creative. And as we think about the movement strategy for topics for impact, gonna mute all that are hanging out in there. We saw that let's mute. We saw that communities identified new partners and topics. When newcomers were involved in the events, they were enthusiastic, and they really saw the impact of working on these topics. And there were some significant content gaps, and you'll hear about that a little bit more that communities found. Also, we saw some of the communities get involved in other human rights and environmental topic activities afterwards. This is an event that Wiki Advocates Philippines is participating in. We also learned that we provided some support, but not enough on running local events. And we needed to kind of improve our communication tools, and that running the writing contest across, we had 20 something languages participating in the writing contest, was a little bit too complicated. And so we're going to try to figure out how to make those things simpler. I also wanted to give you a brief introduction to why right to a healthy environment. So that was the impact we had last year. And then I want to talk a bit about like, why are we paying attention to this topic? When there's all kinds of other human rights topics we could be looking at, or environmental topics. First, this year, the right to a healthy environment kind of reached a new milestone. So it's a relatively new human right. And the UN Human Rights Council approves or declared that the right to a healthy environment is a human right. Brian will kind of answer that as I kind of explain the topic area. The right to a healthy environment means a healthy ecosystem that is healthy for the humans that live in it, and that provides them for all of the ecosystem services and environmental services that they need. This is connected to the right to water. This is connected to the right to food. This is connected to the right to housing and clean air. But it's not just that. And so it's worth kind of digging in a bit more. Important to think about is like the environment is the cornerstone for all of the other human rights that we have. Like you cannot have access to water and food if the environment does not work, right? We cannot have food if biodiversity doesn't exist. It is hard to make shelter and like survive in a ever-changing world when climate is at threat, right? Lots of people die of pollution every year. Our animals die of pollution every year. So it's like we all have a right, and this right is important to how we exist as humans. And when you kind of dig into the right to a healthy environment a little bit more, it's also about not just like the humans that live right now, but the humans that will live in future generations. And so that's kind of where we want to think about. We want to think about generative human opportunity. Like, what does it mean for humans to like really have access to a clean, healthy environment that is supportive of us as humans? So I'm noticing people are still coming in. Just a note, we'll be recording until the Q&A session. We will cut out any conversation at that point, but if you go on camera or talk while we're doing the presentation portion, that will end up in the recording. The reason why the right to a healthy environment is really important is that the world is getting really complicated because of what the UN is calling a triple planetary crisis. These are three major issues. The first and most obvious of these is the changes that we're experiencing because of climate change. Climate change is caused by the adding of global warming greenhouse gases to the environment, and it changes the weather, which changes the society that is adapted to the weather we have now here. And so a good example is that what I have come to start thinking of like flood month. Last July, there were floods in every corner of the world. And these floods would not have happened without the increase in temperature and moisture caused by climate change. This is affecting everyone, and it's going to affect us in ways that we don't entirely expect. A good example of this is a Twitter thread that from a Canadian food researcher that I follow. He had 88 tweets about how climate change, from like recent news reporting about how climate change is like hurting food systems right now. And that's only like the stuff he collected. There is a lot of change happening, and it's going to affect all of us. And we're going to start seeing things like food inflation, water scarcity, migration, lots of problems. This is not to say that you need to be down about it. We have a real opportunity as Wikimedians, as humans who want to advocate for our human rights, to change that story. And that's what this campaign is about. When you think about climate change or biodiversity or pollution, we want to talk about the human impacts of the complexity and how we are working to address it as humans. And if you're not familiar, like, Wikipedia is a good platform for talking about climate change. Recently, in the last 12 months or so, we've been getting increased press attention to this fact. English Wikipedia in particular has a very active climate editing community. But we also know that English Wikipedia isn't the only place where a lot of impact is happening. We have 25,000, almost 26,000 climate change related pages across all of the Wikipedias. These pages collectively have 320 million page views a year. This is a lot. We are probably the single biggest source of communication about the climate crisis in the world. And we do it in more languages than any other platform. I haven't fully verified those statements, those claims, but if anyone can prove me wrong, I would welcome it. But I think, as far as I can tell, we are the single biggest platform for communicating about the climate crisis. And that's just the pages that we've identified based on the about 3,000 or so on English Wikipedia. If you think about the climate, as I was saying, we all have a right to a healthy environment. Climate change affects everything. This will include almost every topic about human society is connected to climate change. So just the climate change articles, 320 million page views, all of the other potential ones, much more. And we see kind of surges in attention on these topics as the news happens. We've also seen that climate topics and other topics related to the environmental crisis and the human impact have been surprisingly good for training newcomers. This is an event that was run in November last year, where they had about 100 newcomers, including Euphemia, who's in this call today, participating in editing Wikipedia about climate crisis in Africa. And almost all of these people, something like 60 of the participants, were able to edit, and very few of them had much editing experience ahead of time. So this is something you can do, and Ruby will talk to you about how you can kind of get support in thinking about this in a little bit. We also know that there are some really big gaps in non-English content. So as I was saying, there's about 26,000 articles about climate change. Only 3,500 of those are in English. The non-English content has a lot of gaps because much of it was translated 5, 10, 15 years ago. And much of it, it doesn't have people kind of actively working on it. So running a campaign like this is an opportunity to bring attention within your language community on these gaps, to get some second eyes on it, and to do the really important thing, which is write the human impact of the story. That's why we're calling it human rights. That's just the climate content. As I said earlier, we want to focus on the triple planetary crisis this year. All three of the big issues: climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. I want to give you a short preview of biodiversity loss and pollution, and Ruby and I are going to find some space in the next few months to kind of introduce, create more space to talk about these topics and workshop ideas with you. So on pollution, how does that connect to human rights? At the very basic, our health and our lives, our ability to live, is impacted heavily by pollution globally. Air pollution alone kills something like 7 to 10 million people a year that don't have to die. This is a problem. And in certain parts of the world, like recently happened in India, the pollution in cities and high population areas really prevents people from doing other things in their lives. This is not just air pollution. This is plastic, this is water. I went looking for pollution related content in the WikiLoves Africa photos from this last year. And these are the images I saw. We have a lot of content and a lot of storytelling already happening on high quality content around pollution topics. And this is something that's insanely local. And I know there's a lot of organizers from Africa here. Like topics like plastic pollution and air pollution are really relevant to the population communities that you're kind of working with, water pollution. And so just something to think about is like, can you run an event on pollution and that how it affects humans? The other one, which is a little more complicated, is the connection between human rights and biodiversity loss. At a kind of high level, anything going wrong in the environment is bad for humans. But in particular, the human indigenous rights and right to food and right to clean air and water is affected by the loss of biodiversity. The organization that lists endangered species recently identified that they had 140,000 species that are endangered, and bird populations, insect populations the world over are crashing. This is a problem, and it affects a lot of things that we have to do in our livelihoods. In particular, this round, we're gonna spend some time looking at the human rights of indigenous peoples. And the rights protected by treaties and other kind of legal frameworks for indigenous peoples. But it's also important to remember that biodiversity is deeply connected to livelihoods around the world. This picture on the bottom left is from the Share Your Struggle campaign from the Indian community, a picture of the farmers' protests. Those are connected to healthy ecosystems. So one last thought from me, and then I'm going to hand it to some community organizers that worked here. We don't want to over-prescribe what you do with your communities. We want to help you find something that makes sense for your communities. This is a big topic area. Human rights is everything about being human. The environment is very big. The problems in the environment right now are very big. And so we need to find edits and actions that make sense for your local communities. We can edit about cities. A lot of city articles across Wikipedia do not have environmental topics covered. These environmental topics in cities particularly hurt the urban poor. So their human rights are frequently violated by these environmental issues. We can write about public infrastructure. So Brian asked about, can we organize around water? Yes, water is one of the biggest environmental issues. This is a good example of kind of edits we can make to water pages. We can write about women. Women are leading climate action and are frequently at the front of advocating for rights. There's a lot of work to do here. We can talk about bodies of water, like water pollution and plastic pollution are in every body of water in the world. It's not just the water that affects humans, it's also the water out there that affects fish and our access, all the good things. And then we can talk about the industries and businesses at the root of the problem. As you kind of think about the topics that might be impactful for your communities, you might want to look, where are the environmental issues? So that is my little introduction. And Ruby has brought some of our organizers from last year's campaign here to talk about their experiences. So Ruby, do you want to introduce folks?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Alex, for such an insightful presentation. My name is Ruby. I'm from Ghana, and I have been doing a lot of organizing in Ghana and Africa. And today I'm privileged to be part of the campaigns team at the Wikimedia Foundation as a content campaign fellow. Part of my work is to support the Wiki for Human Rights campaign and organizing that campaign and supporting local organizers as well. So I had the opportunity to invite some of our past campaign organizers for Wiki for Human Rights to share some insights, share some experiences. So on that note, I would want to call on Carol. Carol, if you're around, you can talk briefly about or share your experience briefly about how you went about your campaign last year. We also have Euphemia from Ghana and Nano as well to share their experience. So,
thank you, Ruby. Hello, everyone. My name is Kirill and I'm from Macedonia. I'm an active contributor and event organizer on the Macedonian Wikipedia. I've been in charge of Wiki for Human Rights for 2 consecutive years, in 2019 and 2020, as well as 2021. I would like to briefly explain about the strategy that I have come up with in order to get both experienced and non-experienced editors involved in this campaign. For the non-experienced editors, we collaborated with external parties. In the first year, it was the Institute for Human Rights in Macedonia, which brought people who were interested to write articles related to human rights. They have a lot of materials on the topics that could be used to write articles. We organized an editathon in which we trained the people so that they could start edit articles on the topics that they said they could contribute. And the second part was a series of editing challenges for the experienced Wikipedians. We used the central notice to inform users that we are going to organize online editathons so that they could join and write on the pre-specified topics. The topics that we covered in the first year were human rights activists, as well as an overarching topic which included children's rights, right to a healthy environment, and many other topics which were identified by our partnering Institute for Human Rights. In the second year, which was in fact this year, 2021, we joined the international campaign under the slogan Right to a Healthy Environment. The idea was to identify topics related to areas such as climate change, environmental law, sustainable environment, and other similar topics that were not covered on the Macedonian Wikipedia. We expanded the campaign so that we partnered with new organizations. One of them is an SOS Children's Village, which were highly enthusiastic to write articles about children's rights. We had an editathon with them on this topic. We also collaborated with an NGO from another city in the country in order to cover some topics related to human rights. And then we also had an editing week as a competitive challenge in which experienced Wikipedians wrote articles on activism for a healthy environment. We adopted the list of topics identified by the UN, with whom we partnered internationally during this international campaign. People wrote articles on topics from that list. and then the best participants were awarded with symbolic prizes. One thing that I would like to highlight from my experience is that you have to be free in defining the topics that you would like your community to contribute to. So you don't need to simply stick to those topics that are suggested in the lists on in the international campaign. This is something that worked for us in the second year, so that's this year, because some of the topics that we saw on the list were not enough in order to accommodate all the efforts that we have made to make this localized campaign work. So that's why we moved on to identify local lists of topics that we thought are important for our community in order to fill the content gaps that we had related to environments and the other related topics. Thank you. I think that's all for me in this part.
Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing your experience. I'll go on to Euphemia. Euphemia, if you're on the call, you can share your experience. If not, I would ask Nano to.
Hi, Ruby.
Oh, okay. Euphemia is here. Great.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you so much. Hello. So even though I was just looking at the list and thinking I was going to go last, but that's okay. So last year we had our own Wiki for Human Rights campaign in Nigeria, and I just want to talk about briefly on some of the things that worked for us. During the campaign, we looked at some of the potential places or the potential audience to target that would be best for us to target for the campaign. And because this is a topic that most times people from this part of the world do not really pay much attention to as regards other topics. So we decided to focus on environmental activists that are domiciled in Lagos, Nigeria. And they were the audience we brought in to work with during this campaign. And because they are already people who are involved in this space, people who are working towards environmental protection and conservation. And as well, some of them were also coming from areas that were having stories of how climate change is impending on their rise to life or development or even food or water. And so this really worked magic for us because some of them were also very eager to improve the articles that were related to the specific geography they were coming from. And also it was the perfect thing for us to do because most of them were also already experiencing some of these things. Every year we see issues of flooding that are affecting businesses, that are affecting children getting to school, and even people getting to their workplaces. And when we get such stories, it's really clear to us that it's actually hindering the development of the particular geography that we're in. But most of the times when we move in to read some of the articles that are related to climate change, we did not see stories of how or where these things are happening in different parts of the world. And these are some of the things we felt there was need for us to focus on during the campaign. And we're also particular about drawing the list of articles that we worked on, because being that most of the people we worked with were new people, we're not sure that we'll leave that task to them and expect it to go well. So drawing up our list of articles was also something we did that really worked for us. Then we also partnered with the media. That helped to bring some level of color to what we were doing, and then also brought in some renowned climate change activists in Nigeria to come in and share the participants' work, and also motivate them to see the need for them to tell stories of how climate change is affecting their rise to life, their rise to food or potable water, and other kinds of human rights. And for us, next year, we're looking at a possibility of re-engaging the people we worked with this year, and especially having been in contact with one or two of them, seeing a possibility for some of them to be directly engaged in running the campaigns, and also playing a part in motivating some of them who participated this year to come in next year as well. And yeah, so I think I'm going to stop here and give the floor to the third speaker to go on. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you so much, Euphemia. And lastly, if Nana is here, I'll just let her share some brief insight, and then I'll take you to what we should be expecting for next year.
Yes. Hello, Ruby, Alex, everyone. My name is Nana Garabedian, and I'm a member of Wikimedians for Sustainable Development user group and Wikimedia Sweden, but I'm mainly an active end user and member of the Arabic communities and the Arabic Wikipedia. So the campaign of 2021 was my first campaign, as I'm a little bit more than 2 years Wikimedian. And I saw the announcement last year in different user groups where I'm active in. I wanted to participate and do something. There's a campaign, WikiForHumanRights. So what can we do? So we launched a discussion, me with other users in different user groups, and we want to discuss what we can to do to part of this campaign. So the editing contest events were suggested with other ideas. But my different idea was launching a webinar related to the cause, to the topic of the campaign 2021, Right to Health Environment. So I wanted to reach others. I mean, in other words, my focus was on partnerships and collaboration with the local NGOs who have reached people like me and interested in environmental sustainability topics. So first, I did this webinar for people outside the Wikimedia movement, because I believe that they needed to know that Wikimedia is not only Wikipedia, is not only about editing articles or uploading photos. It is about campaigns too, and causes that we support. And we have strategy to follow it till 2030, no? So this webinar was a chance for people outside the movement to know what we are doing besides editing articles. My audience in this webinar was the Arabic community in Sweden, as I'm based in Sweden. So I partnered with members of a nonprofit organization in Sweden, and the webinar was live streamed on a media company channels. And choosing this media company was very strategic, actually. because it is the largest media network in Sweden that reaches Arabic speakers. So I took this as a chance to present my webinar and to invite people to learn more about the movement. It was not only by me, there was Alex with me in the webinar as an expert Wikimedian and from the campaign, and it's to present them the movement aspirations and goals. So at the same time, of course, I wanted to show them the importance of the topic, the right for the healthy environment, and to engage to environmental issues by discussion with expertise about how someone can change its lifestyle and create change. So, and personally, in this campaign, there's another motivation that I'm interested in sharing it with you, that you can say that this campaign was my starting point to start increasing my interest in such causes. Actually, we are not users and Wikimedia, we are human, as Alex mentioned. So not only calling others to be interested in the causes, or the movement is trying to spread awareness for. What I am thinking to do for the next campaign, actually I want to try it again with newcomers to Wikimedia. I want to focus one more time of the idea of partnerships and collaboration outside the movement to join Wikimedians' efforts in supporting SDGs and other causes like human rights. So I want to encourage the partnerships in alignment with Wikimedia strategies. It could be like host panel discussions online or offline. It depends the pandemic situation, with expert Wikimedians and with NGOs, local NGOs, to provide available resources, and they can share and how I can spread the word through such webinars, events, perhaps workshops for more people outside the movement, to tell them what the movement, what us is about. And the last point that I want to share with you, that the webinar also inspired me. I mean, the webinar is a part of the campaign. And so globally, this campaign inspired me to launch an initiatives, Wiki SDGs Arabia, with other expert Wikimedia from Arabic community, to encourage others to take actions for global good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Euphemia, Carol, and Nano, for sharing such an insightful experience. So the next section, which I'll be taking, is to help you understand what you should be expecting as part of the campaign coming 2022. So let's get into it. So we are providing various ways of participation in this campaign, one of which is the global writing context. And this is a 1-month intensive writing context, which is open to both experienced and new editors to contribute to content related to the theme. And then the other opportunity is for local organizers, including local affiliates who will be interested to participate in the events, to organize activities that meet their local needs around the campaign. So these activities could be both virtual and in person. So what are the kinds of events that you can organize around this event, this campaign? So we're not limiting you to what we've written on these presentations. We want organizers to be innovative as possible, come up with ways of engagement or ways that they can organize events that contribute to content or create awareness about the subject. And Previously, as you heard from Carol, Nano, and Euphemia, we've organized events like a webinar, editathons, on Wiki writing challenge. You can host a workshop with experts and NGOs about the local topic. So what are the ways of reporting? What are the ways of reporting the event? So one of the things that we are looking for is for local organizers who are, or individuals who want to organize activities around the campaign to log in on the Meta page. There's an event button where you can log in your event so that other people can know what's going on in your region and attend your event. So information that we are gathering include the target community that you're hosting the event for, the kind of event. It could be a webinar, an editathon, or a workshop. The link to your event pages. We've had organizers create their own event pages, like localized version of the Meta page. The reason they do that is to be able to communicate to their local context what exactly their activity at the local level is. So this is also very important and something that if you think is necessary to have an event page, you should. And also because our event page is in English at the moment, it's also good to have a local page where you can communicate in a language that your audience speak. So we also want to know the usernames of the local event coordinators. It's also important so that we be able to engage on you on Wiki, and the country which you're hosting your events to. Also the kind of contributions on which Wiki you want to be doing the contributions on. So it could be English, French, or whichever language that your target. It could be multiple languages. We encourage you to log all of them on the Wiki page. And there are several ways of tracking your contributions. As we already know, the famous dashboard, events and programs dashboard. The other tracking tools that organizers can use to track the metrics of their events. Some includes the fountain tools, the event metrics. Next slide, please. So the global writing context, like I already said, we encourage experienced or new editors to participate, and there will be some sort of awards and certificates with our UN partners to endorse those certificates. We hope that we'll have that also for top participants, let's say top 10 participants. For the global writing context, we are expecting people to do self-reporting, and there's going to be a more simplified point system. Last year, there was a point system that we used that some participants felt that was kind of complicated, and we used the dashboard alongside too. So there's a whole lot of complexity surrounding it. So we want to be very specific to how we want to track this year's global writing context. So we stick into on Wiki registration. So in this case, individuals who are participating in this context can just log in their contributions on the writing context sub page on the Meta, the campaign's Meta page. So that is how we're tracking it. And it's just 1 month, yeah, basically. So with regards to rapid funds, what are we expecting? We're expecting applications to come in from January to March. This is like a very good period where we're expecting organizers who need support with rapid fund to start sending their applications through. What we want you to note is that it takes about a month to get approval. So if you feel like you need to know the status of your grant application early, I would encourage that you can start working on your grant application from now so that you can get you can know your status, let's say in a month's time. And the application is through Meta, like the rapid grant application, the usual Meta application that you all know. But if you think that you're not aware of it, we can help you. You can write to us, and then we can assist you on how to go about the Meta page. We were hoping that we'll use Flags, but the part of the rapid fund for Flags isn't that ready. But as soon as it's ready, we also let community know so that people who are not so familiar with applications on Meta can also benefit from that platform as well. So what are the important timelines? So we're looking to host a series of regional events to support organizers at the local or at the regional level. So in January, we're looking to host regional conversation and support hour for Africa community. We're also doing this because we want to also have language support in those meetings so that communities that speak certain languages or specific languages can benefit from what we're doing and be better supported. We're also looking to have February, we're looking to have regional events in Southeast Asia, East Asia and Southeast Asia, sorry, and also Spanish and North American communities. If there are any additional ones, we would announce. We're also looking to leverage certain existing platforms like WikiAfrica Hour, SWAN, and etc. Whichever events that we also find interesting to be on, and then communicate the campaign, we would announce it to the community. There are other major events that we're looking to host, and that includes the launch of the webinar, which is on the April 14th. So we're going to have a kind of a launch of the campaign and host the webinar alongside with experts coming on board to share some insight into some of the topics that we looking to organize the campaign around. And so I'll encourage everyone to book this date and participate in this webinar. There's also going to be language support during that webinar. So those who do not have some specific language needs can be met to ensure the usefulness of the webinar. And then there's also going to be a first editing event on the 22nd. So more like providing technical support on the wikis. Those who need to know how to use the wikis can join that editing event, or those who want to contribute to wikis can join that event. Next slide. So how to get support? There are various ways to get support. You can either join the regional office hours, the one that fits your region, or you can send an email to campaigns@wikimedia.org, or you can join the WikiForHumanRights Telegram group if you think that you need a closer support, like quick feedbacks. You can join the Telegram group and then ask random questions and get swift responses. We also encourage you to join the Wikimedia for Sustainable Development Telegram or Twitter. Follow our Twitter handle and then get yourself updated with upcoming events around this campaign. And that brings me to the end of this section. And so we will just zoom straight into the next section, which is the question and answer section. So if you have any questions, you can either raise your hands or you can leave it in the chat box, and then we will read it out.
Yeah, so I saw a couple of questions in the chat, and so we'll